Hey guys, Marauder here with my friend LOZF, and we've just got back from a movie that we want to talk about, but there was another movie that we went to recently that we have to mention as well.
About 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago. The first movie we're going to talk about, that we saw a couple weeks ago, is Sherlock Holmes and the Game of Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Starring Robert Downey Jr., Jude Law, and whoever played Moriarty, whose name I can't remember.
He's a good actor. I don't know
he's a good actor whose name I can't recall.
I can't remember his name either.
But, yeah, basically, so some of the things we liked, some of the things we didn't like, and a recommendation. Some of the things I liked, I love the dialogue in this film.
Mm-hmm. The back and forth between Jude Law and
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is great. Like in the first one, which I loved, which is the reason I saw the second one. It's still there. It's great.
Yeah, and the first one, I that's really the only thing that kept me watching. Because in the first one, the plot was just so-so, and it was an okay movie. It wasn't anything great. This one is not only has the witty dialogue, but a whole lot more going for it. And I actually prefer it to the original for a lot of reasons. But I thought the plot was a lot more concise and a lot easier to follow.
Yeah.
In the first movie, I felt that they didn't really give you any information until the very end, whereas in this one, they clue you in as things are happening, where like Sherlock Holmes will be hanging out with Watson, and he'll be like, "Oh, because you see this and that and this." Mm-hmm. And just that little 2-second explanation fixed a lot of problems for me, because like in the first movie I was always like, why are they going there? How does he know this? And then at the end he goes, because of this and that and this and that. I'm like, I would have never pieced that together. It's a lot more of a cohesive narrative, I think, in the Game of Shadow than it is in the original. So that's something I definitely liked.
I also like how they make Watson, like, he's not as incompetent as he was in the first one. He's a lot more competent. For some reason, I don't know why he wasn't that competent in the first one to begin with.
Well, I thought he came off as a pretty good equal, but yeah, he definitely has a lot more to do in this movie.
Yeah, he has a lot more, like, figuring things out going on in this one than he does in the first one.
And there's even a scene pretty late in the movie when Sherlock Holmes says, well, you be my man on the inside. And he goes, well, what do I do? Just do what I would do. And it kind of shows that they're starting to rub off on each other, and he's really starting to become a pretty good detective in his own right. Mm-hmm. Being able to stand there and go, somebody in here is the murderer, and pieces it together with Sherlock Holmes nowhere in the room, which was great to see. Mm-hmm. I love the scene between Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes. They constantly butt heads, but throughout the film, but they don't know, he's the villain yet, or if he's involved. In fact, nobody really even suspects Moriarty of anything, but Sherlock Holmes knows he's guilty. It's just a matter of finding out the information and getting evidence of it. Because he's got all this speculation and all these newspaper clippings and wires and stuff in his room, but he has absolutely no solid evidence.
And I mean, the audience knows that he's the evil guy too to begin with, because
they point it out right away. Yeah. They're like he's the one doing it, and the whole rest of the movie is just
but no one else knows.
Right, it's just them jockeying for position and trying to one up each other, which is a lot of fun to watch in this movie, especially at the final chess game that they play at the ball or whatever that was. Mm-hmm. I love that chess game. I love that whole scene. I thought that was really well done.
Oh, spoilers!
Yeah, spoilers. There's a chess game in it. Some of the things I thought the action scenes were pretty good. The train sequence and the woods and the whole like base thing with the giant gun and stuff.
There's a little niggle that I have in the forest scene though, but.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'll say it now before I forget. There's one scene. It's just because the cinematography. I guess this term.
You don't like all the slow-mo?
Not all the slow-mo. I don't want the slow-mo, but the way they did certain parts of the slow-mo. Like, there's just one scene that it kind of bothers me.
Oh.
Where there's this guy who's, like, Moriarty's, like...
right-hand man.
Right-hand man. And he's a expert marksman. And anybody who knows anything about shooting any type of gun will know that you exhale as you fire, which he does. But the problem is that they don't seem to really get where they should put the emphasis on the slow-mo. They slow down when he's breathing in and out, before he even has the gun up. He's breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. Then he brings the gun up to his face, and then right as he brings it to his face, it goes back to regular motion and he shoots. It's the wrong spot to have the slow motion. He should have it as he's shooting and exhaling.
It's a minor complaint.
Yeah, it's a minor complaint, but it's just... It was one thing that just kind of rubbed me
Yeah, if I was editing that, that's probably how I would have done it.
Yeah, reverse the roll, like just have him breathe, and then all of a sudden slow down, and then watch him breathe out and release the, bullet from the gun.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked the humor in this movie. I thought it was a lot. It had a lot more jokes in it, and a lot more just funny moments in general than the first movie did. Because I found myself laughing at quite a few funny little exchanges between Watson and Holmes, which, especially on when they're trying to get to the wedding, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you can just kind of tell that they had a lot of fun making this movie. It's one of the movies you watch where you just go, man, that would have been awesome to be on set and just watch them interact off screen too. Because I bet they just had a blast together. I think they really, again, I keep saying this, but they really fit well together as a duo in these movies, and I wouldn't mind seeing a third and maybe even a fourth one if they can keep the writing up as they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. I also, last thing I'm going to mention, but I liked the portrayal of Holmes. That he's kind of this cocky, sure. I equate him to Gregory House from House. He's kind of a dick, but he knows he's right.
Yeah.
He's a
very likable dick.
Yeah, he's a very likable dick, which I've only ever seen Sherlock Holmes otherwise being portrayed as this, very high British gentleman who walks around and goes, well, it's elementary because of this, and don't you see? And it's just like, well, that's nice, and it's great, and that's how I guess he should be in one setting, but, when you get Robert Downey Jr. in the role, it just doesn't fit unless he's being completely off the wall, a little bit nuts, but it fits as well here because I don't know, it's a new take on it and I like it.
Yeah. Oh, and Holmes's brother is in this one.
Oh, Holmes's brother is in this one. He's hilarious.
Yeah, played by what's his name? He's played in so many other movies. I can't remember the name of the actor. He's played in V for Vendetta. He's played in so many. He's like in several episodes of Bones too. But I can't remember his name.
Well, his brother steals every scene he's in.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any problems with the movie in general. My only real, if I had to complain about something, it feels a bit drawn out in parts.
Yeah. There isn't as much, I want to say there's not as much detective work going on in this one like in the first one. But that's not to say that it draws from the movie, I mean.
No, it's a great movie, but like, the problem is that at the very beginning of the movie, he figures out this whole how these people connect. Well, he doesn't know exactly how they connect, but he knows all these deaths, and he's got all the wires in his room and all the pictures. So he's pretty much got like the first half of the detective work done when the movie starts. So the rest of it is just like him running from place to place, trying to confirm everything and find people to talk to. But like I liked that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's balanced out by the fact that he plays. Like the title suggests, Game of Shadows, he is literally playing a game with Moriarty. So it's not so much detective work as
it is trying to one up.
Yeah, trying to one up and
his equal.
Yeah, and just do counter to his counter to his counter to his counter, playing to their own plans.
Yeah, and they even play with that at the very very end when they're about to get into a fist fight, which I won't go into, but they play with that whole trying to one up each other thing. It's I thought really well done. There. So I would recommend seeing this at least on video. It might not be something you'd want to go to the theater to see, but I would certainly recommend watching it on DVD, renting it maybe, and just having fun, especially if you like the first one, because this one is far above and beyond the first one in every respect in my book. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you love the first one, just go out and see it in theaters, because that's what I did. Because I like the first one. Yep. And everything you liked about the first one is mostly going to be there in the second one, unless you liked a lot more detective work than the second one. The second one has. Like, if you liked the first one because they had a lot more scenes where they're looking at.
If you were more of a fan of the dialogue than the plot, you'd probably like this movie because the dialogue is still there and the plot is fixed.
Yeah.
I think it's expanded on and far better. So yeah, I don't really have any complaints. Actually, I wasn't even going to go see this in theaters, so he was like, we got to go. And I was like, I got nothing else better to do. And yeah, I don't regret it in the slightest. It was a lot better than the first one. And I was actually looking for things to nitpick, sitting there, and I really couldn't find much outside of some of the scenes being drawn out. So
yeah.
But overall, it was a good movie. Enjoyed it very much. So yeah, that's a recommendation from both of us. I say DVD, he says theaters, but take your pick.
Yeah, well, it's if you love the first one,
yeah,
theaters.
yeah.
If you haven't seen the first one, wait for it on DVD unless you want to really unless you like Robert Downey Jr. in any role,
which I also like. You don't have to have seen the first one.
Yeah, you don't have to have seen the first one
to enjoy this one because there's nothing really connecting them,
with the exception of from the end of the end of the first one, where they just kind of play at the fact that Moriarty is involved somehow, but they don't really show anything about him. It's not really totally relevant to the second movie.
Yeah,
all, really.
They kind of gloss over it, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so again, recommendation, rental, theater. See it. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
The other movie that we actually just got back from a couple hours ago is the David Fincher remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which this is a movie that I have been looking forward to for a while. I have watched the original Swedish version dozens of times. It's one of my favorite films. I think the characters are great in the original, so I went to see how it compared to how they handled everything in the remake. So, yes, very excited. And this is actually, I think, the first time you watched the original yesterday.
Yeah, watched the original yesterday because I wanted to know how well they did at not
translating.
Well, not just translating, but how they differentiated themselves from the first movie, but still kind of kept true to the story, but kept it different and not the same as the first one that was released.
Yeah. I said going in that if this is nothing more than a shot-for-shot remake of the original, I'm going to be very disappointed because if that's all they're going to do, then why don't I just watch the original again? But they didn't here. They actually took away some things, added some things, changed some scenes around, and actually expanded on certain aspects of the film that the original did not do. And in some respects did it better than the original, and in some respects the original exceeds this one. Some of the things I really liked Daniel Craig as Mikhail Blomkvist. I thought he came off as a more believable character in the remake than he did in the original. They gave him a little bit more of a backstory.
Yeah.
They explained a little bit more of his character, and I think they developed him far better in the remake than the original. Because in the original, they just kind of like, he's a journalist. And that's pretty much it. And he's
a journalist for the Millennium, and this girl likes him. You'll never see her again.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. But in the remake, it's a lot more clear.
Yeah.
What he's being charged with. The movie opens with him being found guilty of committing libel in the newspaper against a rich business guy that he did a story on. Whereas in the original, they don't really explain what he's being found guilty of.
Well, they do kind of,
but they don't come out and say libel. They just go, you're found guilty of, it has something to do with the story, but you're not sure exactly what it was until he explains it near the end. Whereas in the beginning of the remake, they actually go through a little bit of an explanation with like this newsreel going,
Yeah.
The journalist, Mikhail Blomkvist, is found guilty of libel against, and it just helps kind of flesh out the little bit of an opening and doesn't leave as many questions as the original. Which, like I said, the original answers later, but still. I liked the opening to this a lot better.
Yeah.
I like Daniel Craig. I thought he did very well in this. I was really, really surprised because I was kind of hoping that he wouldn't do just the James Bond thing, because every single movie I see him in, he always kind of does that James Bond thing where, like in Cowboys and Aliens, where he's got the hat pulled down and he's this tough-ass motherfucker who, whereas in this one, he does play more the detective kind of role, and he really fits.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you get in this one that you did in the first one. The first one, I mean, all you really saw him as was, like, he's a reporter. Like, that's all you really see him as. Like, he's doing detective work, but you don't really see him as more of just a reporter who's doing detective work.
Now, that doesn't take away from the original.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the original.
I mean, both actors do very well, but I preferred actually Daniel Craig's character in this one, or at least the way they portrayed him in this one.
Yeah.
I thought they did a lot better job. Now, obviously, we have to talk about Elizabeth Salander, who is played by, I always forget her name now, Rudy or something. Anyway.
Yeah. She played in the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, she was that. She's on that one. Good with names, or good with faces, terrible with names.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, her character was very surprising. A lot of differences between the remake and the original, in my mind.
Yeah.
In the original, she's played off more as like a dark, brooding person who doesn't really talk a lot. Whereas in this one, she's played off more as a smart-ass, cocky, sure character.
I get what I want and I know what I'm doing. The first one is more, like you said,
she's more mysterious and not as vocal about what she's doing.
That, and you can tell that she has a lot more pent up inside.
Yeah,
like she's repressing a lot.
Right. Whereas in this one, it's like she's found a way to deal with it, and she's a lot more vocal and a lot more, which again, both are well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there are things I like about the original versus the remake in this respect, but it is interesting to see how they handled certain scenes with her. I think one of my favorite scenes is when Balloon's Fist finally tracks her down, and she's wearing a shirt that says "fuck you, you fucking fuck," and I cracked a smile. Because,
everybody in the theater
right, because
that.
It just fits. Because to that point, that's her character.
Yeah, that's
whereas in the original, it says everything about her. But in the original, she's more withdrawn and quiet and solitary, which makes her more mysterious and actually plays to the strength of that particular character in that movie. But that shirt just says everything you need to know about her character.
Mm-hmm.
That she's ready to just fight you and get what she wants. I liked some of the scenes they altered.
Mm-hmm.
Made a little bit more sense in the remake. How she broke her computer and needed money made a little bit more sense in the remake. In the remake, she has it stolen, and in the course of getting it back, it breaks.
Yeah. Well,
whereas
if you want to be, do you want to be specific?
No.
Okay.
Whereas in the original, she's kind of hassled by some street thugs, and she drops it, and it breaks.
Not really street thugs, just like
a bunch of drunken guys.
A bunch of guys that are drunk in the middle
there's
of the day.
There's no point to their interaction at all, really, other than she breaks her computer.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, how they handled that. Another one I liked is they expanded the ending in the remake and explained a lot more of what happened to Salander after the whole plot was resolved.
Mm-hmm.
There's this other little subplot they finish up that I think is handled a lot better in the remake.
Yeah, it is handled a lot better.
Yeah.
It when it ends, it's like, oh well, that was a good ending part. I don't want to spoil by saying what happens, but in the first one, it was just like, okay, that's it. But
in the first one, Balloon's Fist finds a picture of her on the news, and he looks at it and he goes, that's what happened to her.
Yeah, and then...
But now in this one, they actually show the process of her, what happens leading up to that photo.
Yeah, her going to all these places and then doing all these things. Which
and then meeting up with them later.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Now, they changed a couple minor things, like her original guardian in the original died, whereas in the remake, he went into a stroke and actually recovered.
Yep. Well, recovered.
Yeah, recovered. Well, he's alive, at least.
Yeah, he's alive.
And they have a couple scenes together. She finds him dead in the remake, or finds him on the floor with the stroke, whereas in the original, she gets a phone call saying he's dead.
Did she find him? I thought she just...
Yeah, no, she went to his apartment to talk to him.
In the first one?
No, in the remake.
I know, no, I was talking about the first one.
No, in the first one, she just got a phone call and said, "Hey, you got a new guardian." She said, "What happened to my other one?" Well,
yeah, that's
died.
what I thought. I thought you were talking about the first one.
No,
okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay,
in the original, she got a phone call saying that the guardian was dead, whereas in this one, she finds him in the apartment, which, okay. A lot of them are minor changes that you really could go one way or the other with, but it was interesting to see how they handled certain things. One thing I will warn with this movie is there is a pretty brutal rape scene in it.
Yeah.
And I do say this because it does...
It's not implied.
It's not implied.
It's
it is
a literal rape scene.
Yeah. And for a lot of people who maybe that'll upset more than others, just be aware that it is in there.
I mean, to make it a little bit easier, it is handled a bit better in the remake than
the remake is nowhere near as graphic.
Yeah.
Or nowhere near as long.
Yeah, long and drawn out. Because in the first one, you see everything. Everything.
Well,
not everything.
Not everything, but like, it's longer. It's more brutal. It's more.
It pretty much cements the idea in your head that he is an evil
Yeah,
man.
that her new guardian is an evil prick.
Yeah.
Which they don't really play that much with in the remake. Like,
yeah,
he comes off as a dick, sure, but not as big a jerk as in the original.
Like, he comes off as being an evil guy, a bad evil guy, but he doesn't come off as like in the first one where you think he's like Satan's spawn, essentially.
Yeah. So, take it one way or the other, but do know that it is in there. It's handled better in the remake, I think. But
a bit more tolerable, I should say.
Yeah, it's more tolerable to watch, because even the night before we went to see this, we sat down and watched the original, and I even walked out of the room at that point in the film, and I was just like, I'm going to go brush my teeth and get ready for bed, because it was pretty late, just because it just really is an upsetting scene to watch. Whereas in the remake, I didn't really mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still pretty...
Yeah, it's still bad.
It's still pretty bad, but it's handled far better.
Yeah.
So, that is something that you should be aware of if you choose to rent this. This isn't something you should watch with your 90-year-old grandmother who might give you a couple strange looks in the theater, but or on video, whatever. But yeah, so that's better in the remake. Overall, it's really hard to nitpick the film. Really, the only thing that I didn't care for in the remake was the editing. I thought was kind of sporadic, a little bit.
Here and there are parts where it didn't really make sense how they cut it.
Yeah, the scenes don't really flow together well in spots. It's really jerky in areas, and it kind of draws me out of the film. Another thing that the remake did that I didn't like, and not because of what it was, but because of what it didn't explain, was the opening sequence. It's all 3D CGI, but then it doesn't... They don't explain what it all means, like...
Well, it doesn't have to. It's supposed to be a realization what happens...
No, but, like, I understand, like, the drowning and all that stuff. I get that, because it's a murder mystery movie. But, like, in the original, they explain that her name is Wasp, and she's a computer hacker.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, they don't... In the remake, they don't ever say she's the Wasp. Yet, in the beginning CGI scene, there's bees and wasps flying all over the place out of people's mouths. And
one
it's like,
bursting out of an eye.
Yeah, it's supposed to be representative
it's
of
really,
her.
I mean, I like it. I love it because it's really trippy, and it's sort of like I told him before, like last night when I was watching the first one. I'm like, this kind of reminds me of like a James Bond film, and that's what the intro to this one kind of felt like. I'm like, that's why I thought it fit, because it's really trippy, lots of visuals, like over exaggerated visuals and like representations. It's like all abstract, but you can still see what's kind of going on, and it's all has.
I didn't hate the opening. I just hated the fact that they didn't explain
had the wasp,
any of it.
But they had the wasp.
Yeah, they had the wasp, but they never explained what that meant. Because had they said like, "Oh, her code name online as a hacker is the Wasp," all of a sudden that opening sequence means a lot more to people.
But the whole intro though is symbolic, except for the wasp bit, which they don't. Which never say her.
Yeah, but the rest of it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the rest of it, like,
just they've got all these bees flying around and wasps flying around, and you're just like, I don't get it.
Yeah. And the cut from the intro to the beginning of the movie is kind of abrupt.
Yeah,
like, all of a sudden it ends, cuts to black, then movie.
Yeah, it could have flowed a lot better. It could have flowed a lot better and transitioned better into the beginning of the film.
I mean, since they're doing all that cool stuff in the beginning with like the liquid and all dropping over the place,
you could have had it like bubble away into the film or something.
Like bubble away or splash away.
Because they just kind of cut and then play the movie, and it's like the most abrupt thing since Transformers 3. But it's but like I said, overall it was very enjoyable. It was fun to watch the differences and pick it apart.
Yeah.
And I was surprised actually how much I like these, because usually remakes are not handled as well as the originals are.
Yeah, it's like most of the time. This is one of the exceptions. Like the other exception to the remake rule for the remake to a foreign movie are Let the Right One In The second one was better. Well, not the second one was better, but the second one was as good.
The remake was good, yeah.
Than the first one, the foreign film that was actually wasn't it also made in Sweden? To let the right one in.
I thought that was German.
Was it German?
Was it Swedish or German? I can't remember.
I can't remember. But yeah, but this is another exception where, unlike other,
you could tell they cared about the source material.
Yeah,
like and they weren't trying to make a quick buck off it.
Yeah,
which is very good.
Like they weren't just like he said they weren't doing just a scene by scene, like shot by shot, exactly the same with just different actors.
They changed things, they added things, they took away things, and it all just it really just worked. Some things, like I said, are not as well explained, and then again, some other things are better explained than the original. So
some scenes are pointless in this one, but then again, some scenes were pointless in the first one. So
right. So it all, it's a toss up which one you like. If you like the original better, then good. If you like this one better, then that's fine too. You can't really argue with one or the other. They're both very well made films.
Yep.
Yeah. So really, like I said, the only negative I have is some of the things were not very well explained, like in the original. But it's really a toss up.
Yeah.
Some other things were better explained.
I agree with that.
And the editing in spots was really choppy, and I don't think flowed as well as it could have.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of drew me out of the film in parts. But I appreciate that they handled the rape scene better than in the original, since that is a scene that I usually skip over on the DVD when I watch it.
Which I understood why when you walked out.
Yeah, because we were doing it over Skype. We were watching it off Netflix, and we were playing it, hitting play at the same time, so there's a reasoning for it. Anyway, so I would say go see it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Definitely see it in theaters.
If you like a good murder mystery, if you like a good plot-driven and character-driven film that you're going to have to think about because they don't just outright tell you stuff, you're going to enjoy this if you like stuff like that.
Yeah.
It really works well.
Yeah, just be aware, like if you're not familiar with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books or previous movies, like for the foreign films, the Sweden films, this is dark.
Yeah, it is.
Expect a dark film, because it is a dark film.
It is dark, and it is depressing, and it has a lot of muted colors. There's not a lot of bright scenes. It's a lot of stuff at night, in the cold winter, and so it is a very depressing movie, but that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the style it's going for, so do be aware of that. And it is pretty graphic in spots as well, like we mentioned, but yeah. So if you can stomach it, it's a pretty good movie if you like that kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say see it. I enjoyed it. Does it help to watch the original? No, but
not really.
It's out.
I mean, it's fun to compare them, like to see how both of them differ from one another. But they essentially reach the same types.
I mean, it's on Netflix. It's not like it's not available. It's on Netflix.
It's easy to watch. So
if you wanted to watch it, there are ways to do it without even, if you've got a subscription to Netflix, it's not going to cost you anything, really. So, could be something to watch. And there are 2 more movies in the series, The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, that continue on with these characters of Bloomsfist and Solander. So, I'm certain that they're going to remake the other 2. I have not watched the other 2 original ones as much as the first one, but they're both good. I enjoyed all 3 of them, so give it a shot. See what you think. If you saw the trailer and you thought to yourself, that's not for me, then it's not for you. But if you saw it and you thought it was interesting, give it a shot. So, that's all I can say. I enjoyed it, but then again, I enjoyed the original, and I kind of like movies like that. Murder mystery plot movies like that. So.
I'd say go see it in theaters. I mean, unless you feel uncomfortable in a theater with other people when you're watching sex scenes happening, but besides that...
Well, that was another thing I thought was handled better, was the sex scenes between Bloomsfist and Solander. I thought were handled far better in this movie than in the original. Yeah,
me and him were both... He was confused all the time when he watched it, and I was confused last time when I first saw it, where there was this one sex scene where she comes into his room when he's asleep, has sex until she's done, and then she just leaves.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there going, "What the hell? What just happened?" Whereas in this one, it is pretty abrupt.
It is abrupt,
but it makes more sense, especially given what you know of her character up to that point. again, the sex scenes are... I wouldn't say they're graphic necessarily. They are...
It's just
they are... I mean, this is an R-rated film, so do take that into account. This is no PG-13.
Yeah.
This is R-rated, and they earned their R rating.
Mm-hmm.
So, do keep that in mind when you go to see this.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, overall, see it.
Yeah, go see it. It's great.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Anyway, so that's actually a strong recommendation for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and another strong recommendation for Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadow. Yeah, had a lot of fun at the movies the last couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, as always, I'm your host, Marauder.
And I'm LOZF.
And we'll catch you guys later.